Okay, replacing the window regulator on the 02 Passat. On the driver's side, first you want to remove this control panel right here, and to remove that, it's held on by a little plastic piece right like this that snaps in. Sometimes you can use your finger and pry it out. Other times it's very difficult, so you might have to get a little screwdriver down in there, begin its movement, then use your finger. Take that out of place. Once that's out of place, that's what locks this in. You can lift this out. Disconnect your wire simply by pushing a little tab on here, little wiggle, and it comes apart. Place that out of the way, and we have 3 screws, Phillips screw in here. 1, 2, 3 that holds this piece in place. Those screws are necessary because if you leave these screws out, when you go to pull the handle to open your door, you're going to end up pulling the panel itself away from the door, eventually doing damage. So make sure you put those 3 screws back when the job is when you're replacing the door panel. Once these are loose, which I've already loosened them, there's 2 screws down bottom here, held on by a torque. All right, remove those 2 screws. They look like this, and then you can pull this away. Just snap this out. One of these screws is still holding on to the door, so I have to find out which one it is. Okay, now this is free to take it out. Go to one edge, this edge, and work it up. Try the other side. See how that works. Okay, there you go. You're not fully disconnected yet. There's some wires back here you have to disconnect. One is on this right here for your mirror. Problem getting out. Okay, let's move to the wire for your door handle. I will show you how to disconnect that once I take it out. Okay, it's not coming out because it looks like somebody's been in here and is kind of jimming this up. So I have to figure out how to get that out. Okay, I have this already disconnected. I will show you what the problem was. And with this over here, you need to, in order to disconnect that, you need a tiny screwdriver to press right down in here. And then pull. Okay, that will release it. Then you want to disconnect this wire right here that goes to your light for your alarm system, just by pushing in these 2 little tabs, and that's disconnected. And then down bottom you have your light and the harness for your gas tank and your trunk lock. So we're going to disconnect the light. Similarly, there's a tab on here that you have to squeeze. This is kind of hard getting to. You gotta do the harness first for your gas tank lid and for your trunk lid. Always push in, squeeze the tab, and pull out. This tab is a little hard getting to with my big fingers, so I'm going to try a screwdriver down in it. This just is not releasing. It's pressed all the way in, but it's not releasing. Sometimes you run into this issue. Before you go any further, make sure your window is all the way up. Get a piece of tape, any kind of tape, and tape the glass in place so you don't lose your glass, don't be in your way, or you don't damage it when you're doing things. Tape over here onto the outside and then onto the inside to hold it in place. Now we're going to move down here, and there's several things I have to disconnect. The speaker, plug, same contact, squeeze and pull. I have to disconnect the motor, the harness for the motor, all these pieces that hold your harness onto the panel itself. This right here, gonna remove this simply by pushing it in to that hole, working it into that hole, and then remove the speaker itself off the panel. All right, the panel itself is held in by a number of 10mm screws. I've already removed them. We have, I believe, let me see, I can count them for you, 2, 4, 6, 10 screws that hold this thing in place. Don't worry about taking them out too soon because the panel will not move. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and do all of what I just explained to you. Okay, you can get these out simply by wiggling them, and it will pop out of place. Or in areas where you can get your hand behind the panel, you can squeeze a little lip tab on them and pull them out. I'm going to take this one out by wiggling up and down and around, and it pops right out of place. All right, now over here, I'm going to push this grommet in. And this also. Now this one we're going to want to pull out. Okay, we're going to need to pull this one out because we have to disconnect this wire, go up to the door lock. We have to disconnect that. So one is out so this wire can come out through the hole. Now these right here is what holds part of this locking mechanism in place. Quickest thing I do is to push the center of these has a plastic pin that locks them in. If you ever fall in the door panel, you want to retrieve them later on. This one doesn't have one. Okay? Sometimes there are 3 of them, but this one doesn't seem to have one. It just have a little nipple coming out, which I'm sure once this panel is pulled forward, that will disengage. Okay, now over here on the wiper motor assembly, what we need to do here in the back, where the wire harness hooks up to the wiper assembly, feel on the bottom, and then pull that. You'll find a little plastic piece on the bottom that you can pull down. I don't know if you can see it on the video. As you pull, this will move back. As you push in, this will go into the motor. So you pull down, and then you can disengage this wire. Do the same with this. Take this out of here. Wiggle, as you did with the others. And now you're free to remove this panel. But we have to get in the back here and disconnect this. So now, also this bushing right here, right, need to push that down in. So when we pull the panel out, we can come up over the door lock button there. This might be a little difficult because with the adhesive, with the seal on the back of it, kind of locks it in to try and make this airtight. So you might have to do some pulling. Go around here. I'm going to use a flathead screwdriver. If you want, you can put some tape on the blade so you don't damage the paint. But I'm going to put a little paper towel there and just work this loose. Okay, you get the idea. Go all the way around, work it loose, and then we'll pop that out of place. Now with this loose, while you're doing that, you can't really pry the bottom out like you did the top, because part of the regulator mechanism will hit up against the door frame. In effect, this is the new one. This is the bottom of it. This is why you can't pull it out, because this is going to hit up against the inside frame of the door, okay? So you work with the top. Now we're going to lift this out of place. At the same time, make sure you pop these plastic pins into the door, because you don't want to damage that locking mechanism. If you have any problem pushing this in, just take the head of the screwdriver handle and hit on the bottom one. These two will move easily, but the bottom one will not. So if you just give it a quick tap, that will pop it in. Okay, now we're going to try and lift this out of place. Now you see we can pretty much take it out now, except for one little problem. We got to disconnect this wire from the back. We're going to move this over the top here to try and get this out, to give us a little freedom of motion. This wire here hooks up right here, so we're going to have to disconnect this. Actually, this is what hooks up to that. Okay, for your door lock handle on the inside. So we have to take that out. And then the wire, I can't show you where it plugs in at this point, but just feel back there. You're going to have to unlock it by, I will show you once I take it out. It's a little difficult now to do it with one hand. Okay, here is the plug at the end of that wire. This is where it's locked on, right in here. So the only thing I can get in there is a screwdriver to try and move that tab to unlock it. So right in here, if you can get your finger or the screwdriver and press that tab, you'll be able to unlock that. Okay, with a screwdriver down in here, I have to feel for that tab. push the plug up, press on the tab, and then pull down. Got it off, and get it back through this hole. Okay, pay close attention to this, right? For your door handle on the inside to unlock the door, when you're taking it out, make sure you feed it back the same way. This one went in behind here, not in front of it, behind here, and then into the hole. All right? Make sure you feed it back the same way, because if you don't, and you leave it over here, it's going to interfere with the mechanism for the regulator. Okay, next we're going to want to remove the wiper motor assembly, and that's simply done by turning it around, and there's 3 screws that lock it on to the regulator. And those screws are you have to use a T25 millimeter or T25 torque to take these screws out. Once you loosen them and remove them, you can place this wiper motor assembly and make sure you secure it in the back, hang on to it so it don't fall out. And we'll put this on the new one. Normally these pop right out. This one is giving a little issue right here. Yeah, I think some of this cable had wrapped around the motor assembly. We're going to have to keep working until we get it free. And that's exactly what has happened. I hope the motor is going to be all right. Okay. Yep, inspecting the gear for the motor looks all right. So now I'm going to go and try and place it on the other one. All right, installing the window regulator motor goes in like this. All right, but you have these things come installed here with held in place with plastic tie. So placing one hand in the back to hold this in place shouldn't be an issue. Shouldn't, but just hold it in place. Cut this clip, this plastic tie. Take it out. See, this wouldn't move far out of the way. All right? And then you would take your motor. I've already put a little bearing grease around the gear there. And place it in place. All right, you would know when it's lined up because this motor will get flush with the plate that it screws onto with a panel. Once that is in place, you go on the back side, of this. All right, you will notice in place also because right here, see these are sticking up, and the center part of that gear, you will see through the center hole here, and then you can replace your 3 screws. Insert your 3 screws, 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's put these 3 screws in. Get this lined up. Having a little problem lining them up because the cable is pulling on them. Either you get somebody to help you, or you can do what I did, just use one finger to move this around until you get one screw in. Then you should be able to get the other 2 started. Okay. Those started, I can run them up. I have to get the torque. There we go. Again, this is the T25. Okay, doesn't require too much force because you're only going through plastic. If you want to use a torque wrench, which I won't bother with something like this, I will guess maybe 5 foot-pound, something of that nature, if that. All right, with that installed, that's the front side of it. You're good to go. Flip it up and start feeding your wires and through that. Let me back up a little bit and show you. Okay, before we do that, remember those 2 plastic pins that were pushed into the door. Make sure you retrieve them. You don't want to put this on and then start looking for those pieces. Okay, this panel regulator was being replaced because the motor was working, but the window was not going up and down. What happened? We have 2 of these, right? That hole, the locks onto the glass. And this piece right here had broken loose. This is what is attached to the cable itself. I moved this up and down, in turn moved the window up and down. This had broken loose, which would be like breaking loose from this side here. Okay, this is for this side, and this is for this side. With these loose, the glass wouldn't move. But when you remove the panel, these might still be locked onto the glass. So you have to remove them by simply loosening up on the 10 millimeter screw, one on each. And then you can take that off. Now before putting this in, you want to loosen them up. So this will open up because this is in effect a clamp that holds onto the glass. Now you won't loosen it from the back side, right? You loosen it from the inside here where the holes are. That's why you have this hole and this hole, so you can get up through them and loosen this up. And similarly, once you get it in place, you can tighten up on those, okay? Loosen them up. Don't take the screw all the way out. And then once we get it in place, we'll just drop the glass down into that clamp. I'm using a flathead screwdriver to open up the clamp after I've loosened it. Now this one is kind of sticky. I have rubber on it that sticks together sometimes, so you have to loosen them, spread them out a little bit, and when you put it in place and drop the glass in there, then you can begin to tighten. Now, remember this piece here. Okay, we have to snap them through these holes. That can be kind of problematic. Feed this in the back behind this rail and then through this hole. Okay, let me show you why I had problem detaching this from the door handle, the door lock piece on the inside. Apparently this here has a little plastic sleeve, right? And that sleeve is supposed to come off when you pull this back and unlock it. It's part of this right here. But that piece was broken off and caught up in the little channel that you supposed to slide this up when you hook up the cable. So we're going to feed this through here, drop this over here, get this in. Basically the reverse of how you took it out. Make sure your harness now go in. That hooks up to your door lock, goes in place, plug it up. Actually, you plug it up first before you go ahead and put this, hook up this part. Plugging up will be a lot easier, hopefully, than taking it off. Just feel for it. Push the plug is in and locked up. You can feel this, feed this grommet through the hole. place this up. And into this hole here. At the same time, feed this grommet up. Push it all the way up through the hole. Okay, like so. I'm going to drop that in there to hold it in place. With these in place now, bring this grommet up into this hole. Okay. Next, we're going to worry about this right here, locking that with those two plastic pins into position. That is a little tricky sometimes. So I'm going to feed them in and lock them in, and I will tell you how it was done. Now with your, I have put all 10 millimeters screws in place. I have not tightened them yet. You can tighten them if you wish at this point. But I like to make sure everything is in place and assembled right before tightening down these screws. Okay, now I'm going to use my finger and a little tiny screwdriver to align this piece right here. Sometimes they pop in easily. At least you can get the closest one to pop in easily, and then you have to work with the other one in the back. It's not working for me, so I'm going to try and use something like this in the back. Pull on that. There you go. One is through. Now the problem one is this one, the next one, because it's hard to reach it. Okay, I'm going to try something with a little screwdriver, see if I can get in behind it and kind of like taper the end of it. That will make it easier. If I should have done this before the panel, putting the panel on. Just squeeze the end of it together, and then it will pop through the hole much easier, more easily. Okay, I have worked on tapering this one here, so let's see what happens. This one pops in. Still not working with my finger. Let's try a tool back there. It's coming, but slowly. Okay, almost through. There you go. Now, actually, the third one I was speaking of is the piece that holds this wire in place. It's not part of this mechanism. So we can try and find that and snap that in place. There you go. All right, with that in place, now I can put the plastic pins in. One in there. Let me round this hole off a little bit better. Still haven't come through all the way. So I'm going to continue working with this and try and pry it forward. Okay, still having a little problem with that. I might have to get a tool that I can put in that hole and then pull the whole thing through. Something with a hook on the end, something similar to this, if I can feed this in. This is a little bit big. I'm going to try making a special tool to go in that hole and pull it. Maybe a piece of hanger wire or a stiff enough wire will do the job. Okay, with my little specially made tool, a big hook on one end and a little teeny one on the other end, I can insert it through that hole and pull on this and work it around, make sure this is all the way out through the hole. Okay, I already inserted this one simply by using a tool like this, a needle nose like that, putting it up in here, placing the pin on there and squeezing it. If you don't have one of these, just put, I guess, your finger or a piece of a screwdriver. It won't work with a straight screwdriver, but get a piece of metal and bend it, put it behind there to support the back of it, pull it to you, put the pin in, and tap the pin into place. I'm going to insert this pin also, and then we'll pop this on. All right, this in place right here, same type of action. Okay, we have this done. All right, now we can go ahead and with that in place, we can pop these in all the way along wherever we took them out of. Just snap them back in place. Put in plug for the wiper motor assembly. Once you start, you push it in, put a little pressure on it in that direction, and then push. This here is the piece you're working with. See, that moves in and out. All right. Once it's lined up, right, when you push on this, it draws the whole thing into place and locks it. It's locked in. Okay, at this point, all right, you can go ahead and drop your glass down by removing the tape from up top that's holding the glass in place, removing this tape here and holding the glass like so and lowering it. Make sure it stays in the channel. In the channel here and this end. Okay, the glass is, I believe, is down in there. Can't really tell yet. Yes, I can feel it. It's down in that groove, in the clamp. Just leave it in there for the moment. We're gonna lower the window a little bit once I hook up all the mechanism. In fact, I can plug this in right now, all right, and try and move the window. Turn the ignition on. Since the window gonna go down, I'm gonna move it down. I wanna keep my pressure, my hand on it. Okay. Now we're gonna inch it up. Make sure it stays in that channel. Okay, just enough to make sure it's in the clamp. Okay, I can see the clamp right here. Okay, it's in there, but not all the way down. Inch it up. You can loosen up on your screws some more and make sure that glass drops all the way down into that clamp. Okay, now both screws are exposed. Make sure you don't take these screws out by loosening them too much. Press on the glass. Glass is dropping down. Okay, the glass is all the way down in the clamp. Now I can tighten up on these screws. Make sure everything is even. Glass is down in this groove here and here. Tighten these out. All right. Go ahead and move it up. All the way up. All the way down. All right. Glass looks good. Finish connecting these up. Put the door panel on. And then you shall be good to go after that. Door panel is a snap. Just do the reverse of what we did when we were taking it off. All right, we got to put the speaker in with the 3 screws. Originally, these speakers are held in with rivets. All right, this panel was replaced once before, and somebody put some self-tapping 10mm screws in them. You can re-rivet them, but you have to, the old rivet you have to drill out. All right? And once you do all of this and assemble the door panel, I mean, you should be done with this job. Okay, I have plugged in this wire here, right over here, that goes up to the low light that the indicator that lets you know your alarm is on. I've also plugged in down bottom the plugs for your trunk and your gas lid. This one here is for your lock and window mechanism. So make sure you feed that through the hole here when you're putting this panel on. Okay, now I'm gonna next hook up this here for your door lock to open your door from the inside. Normally, this piece right here with this little plastic end that broke off, it will be all part of this unit. You need to put this hook in this way into the catch, not upside down, this way down. All right? And in doing that, I don't know, I'm going to try and show you this the best way I can. You pull on the handle, you feed this hook down in the hole, release the handle, pull back on this plastic piece here like this, insert that in the groove. There's a little slot right here on that housing. Insert that, the cable itself into that slot. Once it is in there, still having a little problem because of that broken piece. Normally you won't have that problem. When it is in there, release it and slide it forward and it will lock into place. Okay? Then you have to hook up this wire here back in place for your mirror. Once these things are in place, feed this door lock button here into its hole. I don't know why I'm having a little problem there. There you go. Feed that into this hole. Make sure it stays in that hole and guide the panel over the lip. There's a lip right there, you have to lock it in. Okay, once it's in there, hit it down, make sure it's all in place. Make sure you retrieve that wire, the plug for the master switch. Bring it up through this side of it. All right? Should be able to snap this all in place now. Just a quick plug this up. Okay, before you do anything else, you have to tighten the 3 screws here. Now, one of these screws fell out when I was taking the handle off, taking all this panel off. I have to find it and put it back in place. Once that's done, snap this in place. Take this piece, first thing you remove. Make sure you line the holes up. When the hole lines up, just squeeze it, and it's in place. All right? Then you go ahead, turn your ignition on. Make sure your gas lid works, trunk works, Door locks work. Window up, down, all of them. Make sure they all work before you call yourself finished.